Okay, so we are good to go now. So I hope the slides are visible.
Yes,
Okay,
sir.
Yeah,
yeah,
this is the
yeah. So let's start our session. So basically today we will be actually seeing how we can conduct a nonlinear analysis of an RC beam in ANSYS. Okay, so basically I don't intend to go into the theoretical part of the analysis. So basically what I would like to cover is how you can utilize ANSYS for doing this analysis. Okay. So basically, you will be knowing ANSYS is a America-based company. So they are developing and marketing CAD/CAM and multi-physics engineering simulation softwares. So in that, if you come to APDL, that is just a part of the ANSYS software. So ANSYS is actually providing solution for almost all the engineering problems we face today. Okay. So in that, APDL can be considered as a single module where we can perform some sort of engineering simulations. And this is the main view that we get when we load ANSYS APDL. Anyway, we will deal with that after some time. So basically, today's presentation, the scope of today's presentation will be to give a detailed explanation on the step-by-step procedure for modeling, meshing, as well as performing the nonlinear analysis of RCC beams in ANSYS APDL. So I will be taking an example problem and I will be demonstrating how you can conduct this nonlinear analysis. So for that, I have actually taken a sample specimen that's of a D beam, and the dimensions of this beam is as shown in this figure. And please note, I have just given the reinforcement in a mesh form in this. Okay, so if you take the cross section, you can see we have only reinforcement provided as a mesh in the middle layer. Okay, and the total dimension is 800, and whereas the span is just 600. Okay, and the reinforcements are like this one, the main reinforcement is actually for getting the development length. It is bent at 90 degrees and extended up to top point. So this form, this u-shaped thing, is our main reinforcement, which is having a dimension of 16 millimeters. Then all the other things are side face reinforcement, so they are actually having 8 mm diameters. So this will be our example problem that we will be analyzing today. Now, before moving on to the detailed procedure, yes, sir.
Sandeep,
Yeah, yeah,
can you explain that figure once more? What is that figure?
yeah.
That beam? Yeah.
Yeah, sure, sir. So, sir, this is the details of reinforcement and dimension of the specimen that we will be analyzing today. Okay, and this is actually a deep beam. So the effective span is 600, as you can see from this figure. Then regarding the reinforcement, I haven't gone with a loop type reinforcement. Instead, I am just giving a mesh for the easiness of modeling, and we can save a lot of time. Otherwise, it will be consuming more time. So I thought of taking a simple problem like this. Okay, this is the cross section, and it is having a width of 100 units. Then the main reinforcement is actually provided as 16 millimeter diameter bars, and it is actually bent on both the sides. As you can see, it is bent up to the top portion to get the development length.
The loading points are marked as a dark one, black
Yeah,
one.
these black ones are actually bearing plates, and we will be having 2 point loads on this, and this will be supported.
Okay.
Hope that figure is clear. Now, in this slide, we will just discuss a very gist of what steps are actually included in this analysis procedure. So when you take ANSYS APDL, say basically in the very first view, it will be including the steps or the options for all type of analysis, like nuclear analysis, and then relating the electronics, magnetic field analysis, and lot of analysis can be conducted. So all the options will be there. So basically today we are actually focusing on the structural analysis. So the first step will be to restrict, or we will remove all the unwanted options from that, so that it will be easier for us. So first of all, we will be mentioning what type of analysis we will be conducting. Then the next step, we have to define, or we have to select which all element types that we require. So basically we are going to conduct a finite element modeling. So in ANSYS we have lot of element types. So depending on the analysis, whether it is just a elastic analysis or it is a nonlinear elastic analysis, whether some cracking and crushing should be included. So depending on lot of factors like that, we have to select the element types which are required for us. That will be our second step in this analysis. So once we have finalized the element types, then we will move on to the real constant problem. Say, if I am talking with respect to the example that we will be discussing today, say basically we have some reinforcement. So for that, we need to define some cross section. So those things will be actually given in the case of real constants. Okay. Then once these parameters are defined, then what we have to do is that we have to also give the properties of the material. Say we know if you take M30 concrete and M25 concrete, it will be having some difference in its property. So those things should be accurately defined. So we all will be knowing that. Say when you conduct a finite element analysis, say if you want the result to be as accurate as possible, this modeling part, the properties that we define here should be as accurate as possible. Then only we can depend on the result of this analysis. So once all these things are complete, we can move on to the modeling part. So in the modeling part, what we usually do is that we will create the geometry. So we have to say, as we have seen in the figure, we have to define the geometry based on the dimensions and the reinforcement, its cross section. Those things should be modeled inside this. And we have option for that. And we have even option for importing the created model from other softwares like CAD, AutoCAD or CATIA. Like that, we can import into ANSYS also. So once we complete the model, then what we have to do is, let's say once we complete the model as per ANSYS, that will be just some boxes. Say if you have created a rectangular prism, that will be just a box. It will not be having any sort of property. So even though we have defined the property, in the next step, what we have to do is that we have to assign the property. So in our case, we will be having our beam, which is made of concrete. So for that beam, we have to assign the properties related to concrete. Then we have the reinforcement, which is given inside that. And again, we have the main reinforcement as well as some side face reinforcement are also there, and the diameter is different and properties may be also different. Sometimes we will be using H5SD bar for main reinforcement and mild steel for side face reinforcement. So those things should be defined in the stage of meshing. And once those parameters are defined, we will be meshing the produced geometry as per the size we have finalized. So once we complete the meshing, then we have to define the analysis parameter. So there it is very important. Say if you want to conduct a nonlinear analysis, say we can specify how to apply the load, whether the load should be directly applied, whether it should be applied in different stages, or then regarding the convergence criteria. So on which type of convergence you want, whether it is a force convergence, whether it is a displacement convergence. So those parameters will be discussed in this step, that is defining the analysis parameters. So we will see these things in detail. Now, once that is also complete, the next thing that we have to give is that we have to specify what sort of loading will be applied on this geometry, whether it is a point load or a uniformly distributed load or a area load, whatever it may be, we can specify that. And once that is also complete, the next stage is to give the boundary conditions. So after defining up to this point, we have completed almost everything for solving the model. So in the next step, we will be directly solving it and we will be taking the results. So this is how we will be conducting the analysis today. This is just an overview of the analysis. And so for today's analysis, actually, we are going to deal with RCCB. So I have taken some special, some typical element types that we usually use for RCC. So coming to the very first thing is solid 65 elements. This is one of the common element that we use for modeling concrete as well as fiber reinforced concrete. And it is sometimes called as concrete 65 elements also. So if you see this element, the main specialty is that this element is actually capable of cracking under tension as well as crushing in compression. As well, it supports plastic deformation and creep. So these are some of the properties that we require for our concrete to exhibit. So we have to select the elements in such a fashion that we must be knowing what sort of performance our actual thing. Say in our example, it is concrete. So what type of behavior this concrete will be giving. So based on that only we have to select the elements. So in this case, I have taken solid 65 elements, and this is for purely modeling our concrete. And please do note, even though we are not including fiber reinforced concrete today, so this element is also capable of providing fibers or modeling fibers inside this in 3 directions, 3 perpendicular directions. Now coming to the rebar. So for modeling rebar, I have taken another element type which is called as Link 180. Again, this is also available in ANSYS. And the specialty of this element is that it is capable of performing uniaxial tension as well as compression, which is what that is what we require for our rebars, right? So that is the main specialty, and some of the behavior supported by this element is given here, like elasticity, isotropic hardening plasticity, kinematic hardening plasticity, etc. Now, as we have also already seen in the overview, once we complete selection of our element types, we have to clearly specify the material property, and this is the crucial part in finite element modeling. So if we are committing some sort of error while defining the properties, it will surely affect our final result. Okay, especially when you are modeling in ANSYS APDL, because why we should go for APDL is like that, it will give us more control. Say in today's ANSYS, we have an option called Workbench, where it is very easy for us to model things and perform the analysis. But the problem is that we will not be having the control to the extent that is possible in APDL. APDL provides a lot of control over our problem definition as well as the solution. So, and when you define the material property in APDL, so you have to be very careful. So this slide shows the properties that we will be assigning for our concrete material today. So first thing is that under linear behavior, linear elastic behavior, I will be defining the Young's modulus and Poisson's ratio. Today I am targeting for 35 concrete, randomly taken this value. So based on that 5000 root FCK, we will be getting an approximate value for our modulus of velocity as 29580. And I am giving a Poisson's ratio of 0.15 for my concrete. So that is what is given in the very first line. It is to show the linear elastic behavior. Okay. Now we have to include some non-linear behavior also. Then only we can perform the non-linear analysis. And we have a lot of types of non-linear properties available in ANSYS. In that, sorry, I will be giving multilinear property, which is coming under isotropic hardening plasticity, and in that subsection, Mises plasticity. Okay, so I will be defining this. That is basically our stress strain curve should be provided for ANSYS. So, and one more thing is that when you give the values of stress strain curve, say you have to give only the important points. So if you are, say, we have selected just 4 points in this particular analysis, say we can include lot of points, that is not a problem, but the thing is that towards the end it will be very difficult for us to get a convergence. Say if you go on increasing the values of stress strain points that you are giving, there can be problems with convergence. So we have to give the crucial points of stress strain behavior of the concrete which we will be using. So I have taken this much values. Then after that, for defining the non-metal plasticity. So basically ANSYS does not know what this material will be. So to give an idea about concrete, we have an option under non-metal plasticity as concrete itself. So, and if you select this option, you can see we will be in need of providing this much values. In this, we have something called as open shear transfer coefficient. Then we have closed shear transfer coefficient. So what do you mean by this is that, say after loading, what will happen to our concrete? Basically, it will be cracking. So once crack is formed, what will be the performance of concrete under shear? So whether it will be able to transfer the shear, or how much percentage it will be able to transfer. So what I have given here is that if this 1 means it is not cracked now, closed shear transfer coefficient is given as 1. That means under this condition, it can complete it 100% perfectly, it can transfer the shear. Whereas when it is cracked, it will come under open shear transfer coefficient, that is given as 70%, that is 0.7. Then the next option is for uniaxial cracking stress, that is the tensile strength of concrete. So that is also calculated 0.7 root FCK based on the compressive strength of 35. It is coming around 4.14, so I have given that. Then we have the crushing strength, which is given as 35. And for the remaining options, I am not entering any value, so the default value will be automatically assigned by ANSYS. So these are the properties given today we will be giving for our concrete material. Then moving on to the rebar, Young's modulus will be 2 × 10⁵ and Poisson's ratio will be 0.3. And yield stress can be taken as 500 and tangent modulus I will be giving it as 0. So based on your problem, you can modify these values depending on the properties of material that you will be using. And again, for reinforcement also, under linear elastic, we will be defining Young's modulus and Poisson's ratio, whereas under non-linear, to get the non-linear behavior, we will be using a bilinear type of property. And coming to bearing plate, it is just undergoing only linear elastic behavior. So I will be giving only Young's modulus and Poisson's ratio. So these are the properties that we will be giving for our model today. The same thing, same dimensions of the figure. And when you model this, so basically you should have a idea about, say, how we will model is that we will start with one reference point and we will give the coordinate as 0, 0, 0. Okay, so in this case, I will be taking this lower corner on the front face as my 0, 0, 0. And with respect to this corner, I will be calculating the coordinate of all the other points. So basically we have this beam, then we have our bearing plates, then we have our reinforcement. So for your reference, I have just given the coordinates which will be coming at different location. And please note, this figure is not to the scale. So here we have 50 mm cover. Here also I have provided 50 mm cover. So accordingly, the coordinates are written here. So utilizing this coordinate, we will be modeling the reinforcement and the total beam. Okay. So now let's move on to the answers, and we can start with our analysis. So in between, say, I am pretty sure that the software will be very new for some of you. So in between, if you want me to explain anything further or you have some confusions, please do stop me and ask. Okay. So this is basically the interface that we will be getting once you open ANSYS APDF. Okay, in this, if you see, we have some options here, file select and other things. Then here also we have some sort of options, and we will see why or what we can do with this. Here we have an open window. Say basically in APDF, you can use programming. So once you know the programming for ANSYS, you can directly give the code here, and this is the space for providing the program input into ANSYS. Then we have the working space here. This box is our working space, and these controls are actually for controlling the view. So whether you want perspective or front view, back view, for that we have some buttons provided here. Okay, so as I already mentioned, the very first thing is, let me save this file. So file, save as, we will save this to some location, and I am just giving a name as 01. And you please change the directory, otherwise you will be in need of changing the directory every time you try to save it. So this, okay. Now the very first step was to specify that we will be conducting a structural analysis today. So what I will do is that from this preference, I will just click it so that a pop-up window will come with different analysis possible in this: structural, thermal, ANSYS fluid, magnetic, etc. So in this, I need only options corresponding to structural analysis. So I will be just ticking that, and I will press OK. Now inside this, the options will be filtered, and the options required for structural analysis only will be displayed. Now the next thing is we have to add the element types. So that should be added in this preprocessor window. So we have an option called as preprocessor here. So you can expand that. In this, you can see the very first thing is element type. So from this element type, I am just clicking on this add, edit, delete button. So once I click this, I'll be getting another window, and here I have to click this add button. So once you click that, all the elements which is available inside ANSYS will be shown here. So from this pool, you have to specify which all elements should be taken for this particular analysis. And we have concrete. So, and I have already explained that we will be using solid 65 element for that. So inside this, you can see we have an option called as solid. And in this, there is concrete 65 or solid 65 elements. So I am selecting that and I am pressing apply. So you can see it will be added here. So till now we haven't added anything. Now I am just pressing the apply button, and we have the solid 65 element selected. Now the next one is we have to model our bearing plate. So for that, I will be using an element called as brick 8 node 185 element. This is another type of element which is available. So I'm just adding that, as well as for rebar, I need link 180, which is under this thing. There is link and 3D finite strain 180. So I will be taking that also. Now we have three different types of element. One is solid 65, which is for concrete, then solid 185, which is for our bearing plate, and finally linked 180, which we will be using for reinforcements.
Sandeep Mandava.
Yes. Yeah, sure, sir.
Can we use the same element for bearing plate and this one?
Which one, sir?
Concrete, solid 65 for both the
No,
bearing
no,
and
no, 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 sir. The behavior of basically the concrete as well as bearing plate is entirely different. And again, the solid 185 element doesn't support providing this cracking under compression and other thing. So we cannot use the same element for that.
what material is used for bearing plate?
Steel itself.
Steel.
Steel.
Steel. Okay.
Yeah. And this link 180 is specified for rebar because it is an element which supports just tension and compression.
Line
so that
element.
is
Okay.
Yeah, line element. That is why we have used that one specifically for our rebar.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So that completes the adding of elements. Now we have to define the cross section and the real constants. So we have the second option below that is real constants. Add button is there. So when you click that, nothing is defined now. So we will add one by one. So first of all, I am pressing this add button. Now we have all the element types which we have added now. That is concrete 65, solid 185 and link 180. So first of all, let me take solid 65, which is our concrete element. And I am just pressing it as OK. Now what I am doing is we have an option called as real constant set number. So for future reference, what I am doing for easily understanding which is this real constant, what I am doing is I am just making it as 35 because our strength of concrete is supposed to be 35. So I am just giving the name as 35 and I am not going to enter any of the option below. These options should be entered when you utilize the fiber. Say suppose you want to model a fiber reinforced concrete. In that case, you have to model fibers or rebars which is present in 3 mutual direction or maybe sometimes 1 single direction. So you have to define accordingly. If the reinforcement are all oriented in single direction, then you can give the properties under this rebar 1 option alone. If you want a discrete or random distribution, what you can do to the maximum is that you can provide some volume of your fibers to be oriented in the very first direction, some volume in the second direction, and some volume in the third direction. By volume, what I mean is the total cross-sectional area of the steel to that of total cross-sectional area of your concrete. So that is how you can model fiber reinforced concrete. Anyway, today we are not going to discuss about that. I have just changed the name of this real constant set number and I am pressing it as OK. Now, moving on to that of rebar, that is for link 180, we have to use 16 mm bar as well as 8 mm bar. So I have selected this, I'm pressing OK. Now, first one is 16. So I am giving the name as 16, real constant set number as 16. And the cross-sectional area for single bar will be 200.96, that is 5 by 4 into d square. I have just given the area here and I am pressing it as OK, so that you can see we have set 16 and set 35 added. Now we need one more, that is for our 8 mm bar. So I am again taking this link 180, pressing OK. This will be our 8 mm bar and the respective area will be 50.24. So I am adding that also. And for the solid 185, we need not specify any real constants. As per the property of that element, it doesn't require any sort of real constants. But concrete 65 as well as link 180 requires some real constants. So we have defined that. Now we can press close. So we have now added all the required elements. We have defined the real constant properties required for these elements also. Now comes the major part where we define the material properties. So below this real constant, we have this material properties, and in that we have this thing called as material models. So we have to select that. So we will get a window like this. I'm just maximizing that. Now I'm just going to add a new material from this material, new model, and I am giving the material ID as again 35. As I told earlier, this is just for reference. So 35, and I am just removing the very first model from this. That was the default model. Anyway, I have just removed that. Now we have our model number 35. So we have to define the material properties for concrete under this. So once you select this, on the right side, we have structural, linear, elastic, and isotropic. So we are going to define this property. That is basically our Young's modulus as well as Poisson's ratio. So I'm just clicking on this. So I will get this window. Here I have to enter the value of Young's modulus. So it will be 29580 in this case, and the value of Young's modulus should be taken from the multilinear curve that you are inputting. So you need to give the stress strain properties. So what you have to ensure is that Young's modulus is basically the slope at the initial portion of that curve. So that should match with the value that you are entering here. So in a later stage, we will be entering stress strain values. So the very first slope should be same as this value. Otherwise, when you perform the analysis, it will show an error message. So this should be ensured. So now based on the value I will be giving for my multilinear, that is stress strain values. So I have taken this value of Young's modulus, that is the initial slope. Now I am giving Poisson's ratio as 0.15 and I am pressing OK. Now you can see under material number 35, we have linear isotropic properties added. Now we have to define the nonlinear properties. So I am just closing this and moving on to nonlinear, then inelastic. In this, I am going to this rate independent isotropic hardening plasticity. In that, Mises plasticity, and in that we have bilinear, nonlinear, as well as multilinear. Okay, so I am just giving it as multilinear option, and we have to give the value of strain and stress. And please note, this is just in my view. Sometimes when you perform the analysis, you may feel that it is better to give a direct nonlinear property for this or a bilinear property for this, or you may be thinking that why should we use Mises plasticity? Why cannot we go for the second type, Hill plasticity? So a lot of things are kinematic hardening is there. We have right now focused on isotropic hardening also. So the basic thing what I would like to say is that when you perform this analysis, you should be having a knowledge about the performance of the material. Otherwise, you won't be able to model it correctly. So in this case, what I am using is isotropic hardening plasticity and Mises plasticity. In that I am going to enter multilinear plasticity. Okay, so the values, let me enter the values. Say the first strain value I am giving is 0.0005. The reference, the starting value, it will be taken as 00 itself. We need to input only the remaining values. So corresponding to this, 14.79 is entered, and I have to enter the second point. For that, what I am doing is I am just pressing this add point button. Now here, the second value. Yes, sir.
How do we get this values, the strain and stress?
So basically,
same doubt I have. Same doubt I have.
Okay,
Can we take the value from somewhere?
Yeah, I will tell you, ma'am. So basically, if you don't have any experimental data, we have a lot of models available for predicting stress and strain. Sometimes you give the value for stress, strain will be predicted, and the vice versa is also available. A lot of models are actually available. But what I recommend is that, say, once you are going to conduct a parametric study on, say, I am going to develop a new innovative concrete, and I want to conduct a parametric study on that. So what I will do is that initially I will be conducting some small experiments in the laboratory. I will be getting the basic properties of that material regarding Young's modulus, Poisson's ratio, stress strain values, the tensile strength of concrete. Those basic things I will be evaluating in the laboratory by casting cylinders and other small specimens. And once I do that, I have the actual property of the material. So I can directly give that. That is the accurate method. And if you don't have an option for conducting experimental studies, what you can do is that you can depend on the models which are already established. I hope that is clear. Any more doubts on that?
Okay, it is clear. Then what is the necessity of these two columns, sir?
So are you asking about stress and strain?
Yeah, it is. I am okay now.
Yeah, okay, fine. So the next value is 0.001. And please note, this is randomly taken values. Only thing I have focused here is regarding the initial slope. So if you take the ratio stress and strain, this value should be.
My question is, why do we give two values?
Two values means?
Why say only one is 0.005 and the second value is 0.001?
Not only two, we will be entering more values because we are right now focusing on defining the multilinear performance of the material. So that is stress strain performance, how this thing will behave. Suppose we are subjecting that material to a loading. So when you increase the load, how the material should behave, that answer should be knowing how it should behave. Then only it will be able to analyze.
Whether this is a range from 001 to 0005?
So I will show you, finally I will show you the graph so that you will be getting a better picture.
Okay.
Continue. So I am just entering these values. 0.002, and now I am assuming it to be 35 itself. Then finally, normally we assume that at 0.0035 the concrete will fail. So I am giving the same value there. And if you see this, say this is the load deflection, means a stress strain performance that we are telling ANSYS. So when I do the analysis on the material concrete, this should be the behavior of the material under different stress and strain. So that is what we are right now defining. I hope now it is clear to you, sir.
And now it is clear. I think
Yeah.
if we are
Yeah.
giving more values, it will be more accurate.
So it will be more accurate, but the problem is that this is basically finally analyzing, conducting the nonlinear based on iterative methods. So when you take this option, that is isotropic hardening plasticity, it will be difficult for getting the convergence easily. You will get the convergence, but it will, sometimes there can be some sort of problem. So if you want to give more values, also if you want to include the this other portion, the right hand portion of the curve, then you have to go with kinematic hardening property. We have another thing called as kinematic hardening plasticity, and inside this we have the very same thing, multilinear property is also there under Mises plasticity. So if you want to include the ascending and descending portion of your stress strain behavior, then you have to go with this. Is that
okay, clear.
Yeah. Okay. So now we have completed the definition of our multilinear property. Now one more thing we have to add. So basically, this is not at all a metal having a metal behavior. So what I will do now is we have something called as non-metal plasticity inside this. So inside this, we have a property of concrete. So we will select that, and we will give the value specific for the concrete. So as I already explained, open shear coefficient, that is once the cracking is starting, what should be the effectiveness of transfer of shear. So I am just giving 70% effective, and when it is closed, there is no crack, we can take it as 100 itself. So I am giving it as 1. And regarding the tensile, uniaxial cracking stress means it is the tensile strength of concrete. So it is 0.7 times root of FCK, which is coming around 4.14 in our case. And crushing strength is 35 itself. So I am not entering the remaining values, and I am just pressing OK. So now we have defined 3 different types of properties for our concrete under elastic behavior and inelastic. I mean, under linear behavior and non-linear behavior, as well as some properties specific to the concrete also. Now we need to define the material properties for our rebar as well as bearing plate. So I am adding a new material, so new model. Now I will be defining for my 16 mm bar. So I am just giving the ID as 16 itself. Okay. Then first thing I will be adding is linear elastic isotropic property, and it is 2 into 10 raised to 5. And Poisson's ratio, let me give it as 0.3. Okay, so that property is added. And one more thing regarding non-linear, and in this inelastic, rate independent isotropic hardening plasticity, Mises plasticity, and in this we have bilinear property also. So I am just giving it as bilinear. I am just making my assumption that my reinforcement will be behaving in a bilinear fashion. Suppose you know that in your analysis, your reinforcement will be having a multilinear behavior, then what you have to do is that you have to study that multilinear behavior and you have to enter the respective values. So here, since my main objective is to just demonstrate how we can conduct this analysis, I am taking it as bilinear property. So in an earlier day, when I conducted this finite element analysis, what I have done is I have actually tested the reinforcement in lab, and I have obtained the multilinear property, and I have used the multilinear property for my prediction. So anyway, today I am just restricting to bilinear property. So I am just giving the yield strength stress as 500 and the tangent modulus as 0. And I am adding that. So for our 16 mm bar also, linear isotropic and bilinear isotropic property is added. Now we have the same thing for our 8 mm bar also. I am considering my 8 mm bar also as HYSD bar. So in a similar fashion, from linear, elastic, isotropic, I am entering the value as 2 into 10 raised to 5 and Poisson's ratio as 0.3. I'm adding this. Now in a similar fashion, non-linear, inelastic, rate independent, isotropic hardening plasticity, Mises plasticity, and from this bilinear, the very same value I am entering. Now we have completed defining the properties, material properties for concrete, 16 mm bar, 8 mm bar. What remaining is that for our bearing plate. So I'm just giving an idea of 100 for our bearing plate. So in this, I am just defining only the elastic property. Linear elastic isotropic properties, 2 into 10 raised to 5. So right now we have completed definition of all the material properties, and this is very important part. So whenever you conduct a finite element analysis, you have to be very careful when you define this material property, and this is what reflects the accuracy of our results. Now I am just closing this window. Now we have defined the materials, we have added the elements, we have defined the real constants. Now we have to model our geometry so that we can apply the load and the boundary condition, and we can perform the analysis. So I am just moving on to the next section, that is modeling. So in this, we have create option, delete option, and more modify, copy, lot of options are there. Anyway, you can find easy tutorials online for this. I am focusing on our analysis. So I'm just going to directly create this. First thing that I will be creating will be the reinforcement. And inside this, for that, what I am doing, I am just under this create, we have something called as key points, something very similar to the option of nodes available in STAAD. Okay, so in this key points, when I open that, I have an option called inactive CS. So we have different methods for creating the key points as well as all the other things, whether it is line, area, volume, or whatever you want. You have different options for creating that. Say you will be knowing if you take AutoCAD, for drawing a line, we can give commands. We can define from start point, end point, and we have polar coordinate options. So in different fashion is there. So in a similar thing, we can create key points, line, area, or whatever you want in ANSYS through different options. So here I am selecting just one option, that is in key point inactive CS. Now we will get a window like this, and I am just continuously numbering my key points. So for this, what I am doing is I am just taking this figure for my reference. So now what I will be doing is, first of all, I will be creating this point, which is having the coordinate of 50, 50, and 50. After that, this reinforcement is actually ending on this particular point. So I will be creating this point. So like that, we have different reinforcements. So I will be creating the coordinates of end of my reinforcement. So coming back, so if you miss the popped up window, what you have to do is that you just press this button, which is raise hidden. So we have this button already opened. So my first key point, which is having a coordinate of 50, x coordinate 50, y coordinate 50, and z coordinate also 50. And the reason for z coordinate 50 is it is actually modeled at the very middle of my beam, and the width of the beam is 100. Now I am pressing apply so that you can see one key point is actually formed here. Now I am formulating the next key point, which will be at this location, that is 50, 350, and 50. So I will be modifying 50, 350, and 50, and I am pressing apply. So you can see now 1 and 2. These two key points are formed. In a similar fashion, we have to produce all the required key points so that you can easily draw lines between these points, which will be in a later stage. We will be converting those lines as our reinforcement. So I am just putting the remaining things. Now the next key point is number 3. I'm making it as 200. Then 4. Just give me a minute for this. 50 and 50. Number 5. 100, 350 and 50. Number 6. 300, 350 and 50. Number 7. 50. Number 8. 5. Number 9. Number 10, 700, number 11, number 12, 750, number 30. 350, number 14. Okay, so now we have formed these key points. Now I will show you how to draw the lines. So for that, what I'm doing under create itself, we have an option for lines. So open this, and inside that we have lines. And I am taking the very first option, that is straight lines. Now I will get a pop-up window like this. So what we have to do is that we have to show the starting point and the ending point. So our first reinforcement I am taking from 1 to 2. So this is my first reinforcement. I am now drawing the main reinforcement. So this completes my main reinforcement. Now I have to give the side face reinforcement. So we will be having a bar here, another bar here, then we have some vertical bars also. So now I have completed that, so I am pressing OK here. Now we have the reinforcements formed as per our requirement. So this was the configuration. So this was basically our configuration of reinforcement. The same thing I have reproduced in ANSYS. Now, even though the option that I am going to show you now is not necessary in this particular analysis, when you conduct complex analysis, this option, that is from select, we have an option called as component manager, that will be very useful. Okay, so I'm just demonstrating that. So I am taking this component manager. So this basically helps us to categorize. Say in this case, I have a main reinforcement and a side face reinforcement. Say suppose after completing my geometry, I am in a situation where I need to work on side face reinforcement alone. So if you are categorizing from the very beginning, this will be very helpful. You can just directly select the side reinforcement and tell ANSYS that it alone should be displayed on the screen. So we will see how to do that. Say from this component manager, the very first option is create component. So you select that. And in this, depending on the type of thing that you have on your screen, whether it is lines, whether it is volume, area, or whatever it may be, you can select that. In our case, it is now lines. So I'm just selecting lines. Then pick entities. So I'm just picking that. And I am giving the name as side face. And I am pressing OK. So it is asking me which all elements should be, or which all lines should be selected as side face. So I am just selecting all the reinforcement that should be considered as my side face reinforcement. Say I have selected all the side face reinforcement. Now I am pressing OK. So you can see one option is there, side face, and it is having 6 lines now. Okay, now I need one more component. Again, lines itself, pick entities, and I am giving the name as main. That will represent my main reinforcement. So OK. And in this case, I will be selecting my main reinforcement alone. So this is my main reinforcement. So OK. So you have 2 options now. Suppose you want to display in a later stage, once you complete geometry, you want to display side face reinforcement alone. What you can do is that you can just select the side face, and we have an option to display component. So you can see all the other things will be removed, and this thing along will be displayed. So we can directly work on this without any disturbance. Okay, so this is the advantage of using component manager from the very beginning of your modeling. Okay. Now we will model the concrete. So we have completed the reinforcements now. So from create itself, concrete is actually having some volume. So I'm just giving a volume, and I am creating the volume by one option called as block, and in that by dimension. So basically in this, what we have to give is that, say we have to model this beam. So if you take what is the lowest value of x and what is the highest value of x. Lowest value is 0. This is our reference point. Highest value is 800. Similarly, what about y? Lowest value is 0. Highest value is, you can see it is 400. Similarly, what about z? Lowest value is again 0. Highest value will be 100. So those things we have to enter here. So 0, 800. Again here 0. Y value maximum is 400. Z minimum is 0 and Z maximum is 100. Now I am just, when I press apply, you can see that I obtained a block here. Okay, so this is actually a block. Say If you take the perspective, you can see I have obtained a block now. So I hope you got the concept of creating volumes. Now, in a similar fashion, we will be creating bearing plates also. And if you look into this figure, what will be the minimum value of X for this bearing plate? Let's model this. So we know the midpoint is 100, and I am assuming that the length of the bearing plate is also 100. So if the midpoint is 100, this coordinate should be at 50, and the maximum value should be at 150. That is regarding X value. What about Y value? Minimum should be 0. And we have this thing going downwards. So it should be a negative value. Say let us take the thickness of bearing plate as 50 itself. So in this case, what I will do is that 50, 150. This is regarding the lengthwise direction. Then height is starting from 0, ending at minus 50 in the downward direction. And Z direction is starting from 0 to 100. We need the bearing plate throughout the thickness of the beam. So I am just pressing the apply button. So you can see one bearing plate is formed here. Similarly, let's create all other bearing plates. So for this plate, the second support, the starting point will be, it will be at 650 and it will be extending up to 750 since the length of the plate is 100. And the Y value and the Z value will be same. It will be going through a distance of 50 units in the downward direction and 100 units in the Z direction. So I am again pressing apply. So we obtained one more thing here. Now we need 2 more plates at the top. So for the very first one, the coordinate will be starting from 250. It will be ending at 350. And the Y coordinate, say this will be the base for the bearing plate, which is 400. And it will be having a height of 50 units. Therefore, the ending value will be 450. Z coordinate remains the same because we need the bearing plate throughout the thickness. So I am again pressing apply. Now I need to form the second one also. So, and for this, it will be 450 and 550. And the Y coordinate and Z coordinate again remains the same. And this is my last volume. So I am pressing OK.
Sir,
So
I have a doubt.
Yeah, sure.
Can we do mirroring option in this one? Instead of creating all this one, can we do mirror?
Yeah. So we can do that. We have the option for mirror, as well as another thing is that we need not model the entire beam in this. So basically half modeling as well as quarter modeling is also available. So that can be also used in your answers. So the main reason why I am explaining in the very vast form is that I assume that some of you are very new to this. That is why I am explaining in this way. Is it okay, sir? Shai, sir?
Yeah, okay, sir.
Fine. Okay, fine. So this is how you will create the volume. Suppose, let me take a case where the calculation there was some mistake in the calculation. You accidentally, instead of entering the coordinate for this, you mistakenly enter a wrong value. So what you have to do is that in the case of workbench, you have an option for undoing the error. But in the case of APDL, you don't have an undo option. So what you have to do is that you have to delete that and you have to recreate that. So for deleting that, what you have to do is that in modeling, now we are in create menu, we have to close that and we have to go to an option called as delete. So inside this, we have different options: delete key points, delete lines, and you can see when you come to lines, areas and volumes, there is volume only option as well as volume and below option. The reason is that if you take this volume only option, what will happen is that this solid part will be deleted. But when you create this volume, you can see it have different corners, and at each of these corners, you will be having some key points. So if you use the very first option, volume only, then this key point will be retained. It will not be deleted. But that will create problem in later stage. So when you delete something, you have to ensure that whatever things you have created, that entire thing should be deleted. So what you have to do is that if you want to delete this entire thing, you have to select volume and below, and you have to select this and press. If you press OK, that will be completely deleted and you can recreate that. That is what you have to do in the case of APDL. Okay. Now we have completely modeled our beam, bearing plate as well as reinforcement. Say if you plot the line. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, if the key points etc. are not deleted, what is going to be happened?
So there will be error message, because once we, in the final stage, when you conduct this analysis, what will happen is that these key points will freely float in space. It will not be constrained. So an error message will be shown like some elements are without constraint. So we won't be able to conduct the analysis. That is the reason we have to ensure that there is no multiple key points or there is no free key points left over.
So that is very essential.
That is very essential.
Make
Yes,
sure
yes.
that it is deleted.
Yes, yes, exactly. Otherwise, there will be error message. We won't be able to conduct the analysis. But in the case of Workbench, again, we have an advantage. Sometimes,
okay, if we are without deleting those key points, if we are conducting the analysis, what will
it will not permit us to. It will not
analyze or it will show it as an error.
In APDL, it will not allow us to conduct the analysis.
Okay.
It will show us an error message.
Yeah, then it is okay.
So that is one of the advantage of APDL, because in the case of Workbench, the analysis will be performed, but the final result will be influenced by the presence of that key point. But in the case of APDL, if there is any sort of mistake, this will not allow us to conduct the analysis. We have to ensure that everything is correct. So that much control is there in the case of APDL. That is the main advantage of using APDL.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. Now, I was explaining. Say this is our solid model. Suppose you want to have a view inside this. You can go to plot and you can plot the lines alone. So that means the edges will be plotted here. So you can see we have the lines, and from the front view you can see the reinforcements, so the beam, the bearing plates. If you take the side view, you can see the reinforcement are exactly as required. It's at the mid part. Okay. So I am again coming back to volumes. So plot volumes. Now we have completed the modeling part also. Now it is the next important thing, that is regarding meshing. So again, moving on to the meshing, what I am doing here is inside this mesh option, I am going to mesh tools so that I will get a window like this. Now here what I have to do is that I have to first of all specify the size of the mesh that should be selected. So in this case, I have selected 50 mm as my mesh size. And there are some crucial things that you have to consider when you select this size. I will explain that in a later stage. After completing the meshing, I will explain that. So for the time being, please do note that I am going to take a size of 50 mm. So how to fix the size? That is the next problem. So in this mesh tool, we have an option called as size. So here what I will do is that, say if you take this concrete block alone, it have one line going in the X direction, and similarly it have one line going in the Z direction as well as in the Y direction. So suppose I am just meshing the concrete block alone. I want 50 mm along the X direction. The mesh size should be 50 mm. Then what I will do is that I will just select this line and I will mention that the element size through which this line should be meshed is 50 mm. We have an option. I will show you that. And suppose you need a different dimension in the Y direction. Say in the X direction you need 50 mm and in the Y direction you need 40 mm. So in that case, what you have to do is that you have to select the line going in the Y direction and you have to give the size through that orientation as 40. Similarly in the Z case also. Anyway, now we have selected these dimensions in such a fashion that 50 will be possible in all the direction. So I will just show you how to do this. So from this mesh tool, I am selecting the size option inside that line and I am setting the size of the mesh. So from here I am pressing this set button. So I will get a option like this. Either you can manually select all the lines. Suppose you want different values in different direction, as we explained now. I want 50 mm in the X direction. I want 50 mm in the Y direction. Then 40 mm in the Y direction. Then what you have to do is that you have to manually select all the lines spanning in X direction. Not only this one, all the lines. That is at the bottom also we have some lines spanning here, and for the bearing plate also we have some lines spanning in X direction. So all those things should be selected. Then you have to specify the size. Then you have to repeat the procedure. And in the next case, what you have to do is that you have to select only the lines in the Y direction. All the lines. That is this line. And at the back side, we have one line here. Here we have a line. Here we have a line. Similarly, for bearing plates also we have some lines. Also inside this we have the reinforcement which is oriented in Y direction. Those things should be selected and the size should be specified. So anyway, in our case we will be giving 50 mm in all three directions. So I am just picking all. Now we are going to select the lines. So I am just giving it as pick all, so that a new pop-up window is there which is asking me to define element, edge length, or number of divisions. We have two options here. Anyway, I am giving it as 50 because I know what is the size I require. So 50 is the size. And please do ensure that you untick this, because this is an option which ANSYS will use. Say sometimes you have selected this line and you are asking it to divide into some dimension, maybe some 45 mm. But when you divide this at the end, you may be getting a smaller portion. So what ANSYS will do is that if you have retained this tick, ANSYS will automatically change the value of this 45, and it will automatically select a suitable value so that all the particles can be divided into equal length. Okay, so here I want 50 to be fixed. So what I will do is that I will just uncheck this. Now ANSYS cannot itself change the size of the line. Okay, so it will be meshed into 50 mm size itself. And I am just pressing it as OK. Now you can see, say if you plot the lines, you can see the lines are actually, all the lines are actually divided into 50 mm length. Now, one important point here is that, say we have modeled the bearing plate, the concrete, the 16 mm bar, the side face reinforcement separately. And these things are now simply floating in space. They don't have any contact with one another. So after this meshing, we have to ensure that there is proper contact between this reinforcement and the surrounding concrete. Similarly, when you place this bearing plate on the concrete, you have to ensure that this base of the bearing plate is having proper contact with the concrete. Similarly in the support also. Otherwise, what will happen is that once you apply a load on top of this bearing plate, it will be simply acting in this bearing plate alone. It will not be transferred to concrete or to the reinforcement or to the base bearing plate. So we have to ensure that. So for that, what we can do is, when you mesh, when you complete the mesh, what you have to ensure is that we haven't meshed that. Okay. So what we have to ensure is that, say if you consider this bearing plate, it have a top corner here on front side. And when you mesh this concrete, the element length should be selected such that a common node should be there. Say in the case of concrete as well as in the case of bearing plate, there should be a common node. So once we complete this meshing, there will be two nodes coming at the very same location. And you have to ensure that such thing happen at all the contact points. So once we have two nodes at all the contact points, what we can do is that in a later stage, we have few options like glue or merge. So we can use any of these options so that we will combine all the coinciding nodes so that they will be glued to each other, or they will be merged into a single unit so that we can ensure that there is proper contact between these different parts. And we will see that shortly. So now we have just given the size for this element, still it is not meshed. Now we have to mesh it. So during meshing only, we will be assigning the required properties for these materials. So I am again going back to my mesh tool. Now we have specified the size for all the things, that is concrete, reinforcement, bearing plates, etc. Now what we have to do is that, first of all, let us mesh the side face reinforcement. So first of all, we have to initially tell ANSYS that before meshing, we have to tell ANSYS that when you mesh, you have to assign the set property to the element. So for side face reinforcement, we have already defined some properties. So that should be set here. So element attribute, I will press this set. From this element type number, so we are going to define side face reinforcement, which is of the type link. So link 180 is selected. Then we have material number. We have given the material number for side face reinforcement as 8. I hope you remember that. Then we have real constant set, that was also given the ID as 8 itself for our side face reinforcement. So I have to select that. I have to press OK. Now, if you go to the bottom, we have the option for mesh. Right now it is in volume, so you have to change that to lines, because we are now going to mesh the line. Now I have selected the line. Then you have to press the mesh button. If you want, you can use the component manager and you can ensure that side face reinforcement alone is displayed, or you can directly take. Now this is a simple geometry, so it will be very easy for you to directly take it. But if you are dealing with a complex geometry, the component manager will be very helpful for you. So now I am taking the side face reinforcements. I accidentally pressed on something else. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 lines are selected, and you can see the count is 6 itself. So it's okay. No other lines other than this is now selected. So I will press OK. Now you can see this is now meshed. Now I have to repeat the same process for all the other things. So I will repeat the process. First of all, I have to set the element attribute. Now let us mesh our main reinforcement. So it is again of the type link 180. Material number is given as 16. Real constant set is also 16. So once you specify the real constant set, what will happen is that the cross section which we have defined in real constant will be automatically assigned to the selected elements. And in the earlier case, when we meshed the 8 mm bars, the cross section details and other things are now assigned to those bars. Okay, now we are going to mesh the main reinforcement. Okay, again from mesh, line itself, mesh, and I have to select these 3 lines, and I have to press OK. So that is again meshed. Now we have to mesh our concrete as well as bearing blocks. So now we will mesh our concrete. So element type is solid 65, material number is 35, real constant number is also 35. So I am selecting that. Okay. Then from the mesh option, I have to select volume because that is modeled as a volume. And here we have different types of options. You will be familiar with finite element analysis. We have tetrahedral meshing, we have hexagonal meshing, and different types of mesh are there. So here I am taking it as hexahedral, and I am taking the sweep option. And I am pressing this. And now I have to select the volume. So this concrete entire volume is now selected, and I am pressing this. Okay. Now we can see it is already meshed into smaller elements. Now if you want to plot back the volume, you can do that. Going back, now we have to select the properties for bearing plate, which is solid 185, material number is 100, and we don't have any sort of real constants defined for our bearing plate. So you can select anything that will not affect it. So okay, and again mesh volume, hexagonal, sweep, and again sweep. So you can select all the 4 bearing blocks and press OK. Now I would like to repeat the point which I have told you earlier. So you can see when I meshed this concrete, the element length ended here, and we have a node at this particular point. So if you take this, it will be more clear. So for this concrete, I will be having a node here. Similarly, for this bearing block also, I will be having a node here. And at this midpoint also, I will be having a node for my concrete as well as my bearing plate. At the end also, I will be having a I will be having a node for this concrete and this bearing plate. Similarly, in the position of all the reinforcement also, we have selected 50 units. So what will happen is that, say this concrete is having 50 by 50 element, and at this end, we will be having a node. Similarly, this reinforcement will have a node here, and this reinforcement will have a node here. So those things are actually sitting one on another. And in a later stage, we will combine that so that we can ensure that there is proper contact between concrete and reinforcement as well as the bearing plate and the concrete. So we will do that. Now we have meshed the entire thing. Now what we can do is, what we have to do is that we have to ensure that those common nodes, that overlapping nodes are merged into a single unit. So for that, what you have to do is that, first of all, let's check whether there is nodes overlapping. So for that, under the mesh option, you have something called as coupling. So in this, if you go down, you can see coincident nodes. So let's select that. Let's make ANSYS search the coincident nodes for us, and the tolerance is given as 0.0001. It's okay. So, okay. Now you can see. So we have coinciding nodes at all the base. Here we have coinciding nodes. Here we have here, and at all locations. Say you can see at this contact of the bearing plate and the concrete, we have we have overlapping nodes. Similarly, at all the location where we have reinforcement, we have overlapping nodes. So now let's combine this. So how to combine it? So for that, what you have to do is that you have to go to this numbering and controls option. Inside this, you have an option called as merge items. Okay, so you select that, and what should be merged, what type of things should be merged, whether it is node, element, key point. So that is what ANSYS is asking. So let's take it as nodes. We have completed the meshing. Now we have the nodes there. And what is the range of coincidence? So let's give it as 0.01. So it will form a sphere with a diameter of 0.01 units. And if you have two nodes inside that sphere, that will be considered as a single node now after performing this operation. And what should be done when you find some such nodes? The action is merge items. And I am pressing it as OK. Now you can see some warning message is coming like coupled node set 4 disappeared, because we were having one node on the other and one was deleted and the remaining node was given as a common node for both the materials. That is what happened now. So we can close that. That's okay. Now to cross check things, let's again search for overlapping nodes. So from coupling, coincident nodes, and I am giving, say I will give a much more higher value, say maybe 0.01. And if I press OK now, you can see there is no overlapping nodes shown by ANSYS. It is pretty clear now that all the overlapping nodes are merged and proper contact is now ensured. And this is very important step. Otherwise, you will get a message like some elements are unconstrained. The presence of unconstrained elements are observed in the model. Like that, you will be getting some sort of error when you perform the analysis. Okay, so we have now completed addition of elements, definition of real constants, then defining material properties, as well as modeling and meshing. And during meshing, we have added the material properties also. Now we can give some details regarding the analysis type. For that, what I am doing, after pre-processing, we have solution. Inside that, we have analysis type, and we are taking it as new analysis. And what type of analysis you are going to conduct? I'm going to conduct a static analysis, so I'm selecting that. Okay. Then there is one option called as solution control. Here we will give the details of the analysis to be performed. So we will select that. So this is the very first window that you will be getting. So here what I will do is that time at the end of load step will be given as 1. Then I will put it as time increment, and time step is given as 0.01. Minimum time step is given as 0.001. Maximum time step is given as 0.1. And what do you mean by this? So basically, suppose you will be applying a total load of 500 kilonewton or 1000 kilonewton on this beam, and this 1000 kilonewton will be applied in different stages. In the very first stage, the time value will be 0.01, the value that we have given. And at that time, what will happen is that the total load, we will be defining it as 1000 kilonewton. So what is the value corresponding to 0.01 into 1000? That much load will be applied on the structure, and it will check for convergence. If it is converging, what will happen? The time will be increased to 0.01 plus 0.01. And that factor will be multiplied with the total applied load, that is in our case 1000 kilonewton. And the value which we are obtaining corresponding that will be applied as the load on the beam. It will again check for convergence. Like that, it will be increasing the time, and the final time when we will complete the 1000 kilonewton is when the time reaches 1 second. Okay, so this is the importance of time step. We are actually applying the load in different steps, and how much fraction of the load should be applied at each step. That is what we are defining with this term, which is called as time step size. Okay, and we have two more options called as minimum time step and maximum time step. So why we need this? If time step is itself enough to conduct the entire analysis. So what will happen is that ANSYS have some algorithms for performing this iterative operation. In that, if it initially applies the load corresponding to 0.01 time, and it feels that to the nearby ranges, the load will surely converge. What ANSYS will do is that ANSYS will automatically take the next time factor as the maximum time step. So from this 0.01, it will just add 0.1. So the next time will be 0.11. It will skip all the remaining things, and it will calculate the load that should be applied at that time, and it will apply that. It will check for convergence. If it is not converging, it will automatically come back. If it is converging, what will happen? It will, based on the algorithm, it will check whether the nearby values, it will converge or not. If it feels that it will converge, it will stick on to the maximum time step. Suppose it is not happening, it will come back to this time step option itself. And again, if it is not converging, what will happen is that it will go with this minimum time step option, which is well below the time step option. So the smaller changes in load can take place utilizing this minimum time step, and higher changes in the applied load can take place utilizing the maximum time step option. So this is the significance of this time control, and we are utilizing this for applying load at different intervals. I hope that is clear to you. Now from the right,
Sandeep, one
yes,
doubt. What
yes,
is
miss,
the
yes.
advantage of giving load like that time step without time
Yeah,
step
yeah,
applying
that's
the load?
a good question. Yes. So basically, what will happen is that, say, suppose our beam will fail at 100 kilonewton. Okay. So here, what is actually happening is initially we will be applying 5 kilonewton. So the beam may not be having any sort of deflection or any change in its geometry. In the later stage, we will increase the load and go up to say 40 kilonewton or 50 kilonewton. So at that time, what will happen is that it will undergo some sort of deflection, it will have some sort of strain, some sort of deformation, other things will happen for the beam. So in the next stage of analysis, ANSYS will take the initial sample as the beam which we have in the previous stage. That is, it is actually deformed beam. Sometimes crack may have formed. To that only it will be applying the next amount of load. So what the advantage of that is that it can take account of the geometric non-linearity into picture. So basically, when we go on slightly increasing and increasing the load, there will be some non-linearity induced due to the change in geometry that can be included by applying stepped loading. That is the main advantage of using this method. Okay. So now on the right side, we have an option called as write items to result file. In that, we have a lot of options. Anyway, I am selecting write every substep. So at each of the load application, the results will be calculated and it will be written to a file. So that is why I have taken write every substeps. We have different options. We have do not write any substep means the results will not be written into file. Okay, so anyway, I am just sticking on to this option. Now I am moving on to next option, that is solution and options. In that, we have the option to select type of solvers. Anyway, I am selecting the second type. If you are not familiar or don't know what is this sparse, direct or precondition CG, you can stick to program choose and solver. So ANSYS will automatically select as required. Anyway, now I am selecting the first option here, and we have an option for number of restart files to write. This is very important thing. So for the time being, I'm just giving the value as 200. I will explain the importance of this at a later stage. And frequency of making restart files, I will make it as write every substep. So for every substep, it will make a restart file. Now moving on to the nonlinear part. Here we have few options regarding the methods that ANSYS will be using. So I am just in this, rather than program chosen, for line search, I am enabling it. Line search is enabled, switch to on always. Then maximum number of iterations. A solution will be found based on iterative methods. So maximum number of iteration, rather than giving it for the choice of ANSYS, I am giving it as 1000 itself. Now we have the important part, that is set convergence criteria. So this actually depends on the problem. So based on the problem, you will be having different types of convergence requirements. So based on that, we have to give it as either force convergence, moment convergence, displacement, rotation, or for other analysis, we have separate conditions for that. Anyway, in this analysis, I am giving it as force convergence, and we have tolerance value. Now, default value is 0.001. That means it will permit up to 0.1% difference. When we check the convergence, 0.1% difference will be allowed. So anyway, let's start that with 0.1% itself, and the minimum reference value can be given as 1, and press OK. And I am closing this. We will come back to this. Then we have advanced nonlinear part here. Here regarding the termination criteria, say once it is converged or not converged, say program behavior upon non-convergence. Presently, the default option is terminate analysis and exit. So that should not be allowed. So we will change that to terminate, but do not exit. Analysis can be terminated, but we need to see things and we need to make modifications. So these are the ANSYS means analysis control that I am giving for this present problem, and I am pressing this OK. Now we have defined this. The only thing remaining is application of load and support conditions. So below this we have defined loads, apply, structural. In this we have two options, force moment as well as displacement. So let me take force moment on nodes, and I am selecting, rather than single, I am selecting the box operator here, and I am dragging a box here also on both these points, and you can see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 nodes are actually selected now, and on these 6 nodes, I will be distributing the total expected load. So let's expect that this beam will be carrying something around 600 kilonewton. So I have to divide that by 6 and apply the obtained value at each of these loads. So in our case, 600. So we will be having 100 kilonewton at each loads, but please do note that we haven't seen any option for setting the unit. So when you perform the analysis in the case of ANSYS APDL, you have to yourself stick on to a single unit. Say we have defined Young's modulus and other things in Newton per mm square. So you have to give the unit for load as Newton itself. So I will be applying minus 1 lakh, that is minus 100 kilonewton to the downward, minus 100 kilonewton to all the 6 nodes, so that it will be in total 600 kilonewton. So now you can see 6 loads are separately applied. Each will be having a magnitude of 100 kilonewton. Okay, now we have to define the support also. So again support should be structural, displacement, and on nodes. Again, I am selecting this box operation, and I am selecting both these lines. So you can see here also 6 nodes in the same line are selected, and I am giving it as OK. I am restricting UX, UY, and UZ movement. I am restricting all the translations. And again, these things depend on your analysis. If you want to give one support as roller, you can do that. You have the option for that. If you want one to be fixed, that also you can do there. So anyway, I have just made it like this. I have restricted all the translation at both the supports. Now everything is complete. Let us save this. Final. Okay. Okay. Now let's run the analysis. Try to run the analysis and check if we will be getting some sort of error or not. So for that, in solution itself, we have an option called solve and current ls. And we will get a window showing all the details that we have given in the analysis option. Say load step number, time at the end of load step, that is 1, then time step size. Other details will be shown here. If you feel that there is something need to be modified, you can close this window and go back to analysis type, and you can change that, and afterwards you can run it. Okay, anyway, let's try to run it now. I'm pressing OK. Now the analysis is started. Since this is a simple problem, actually this thing is going very fast. Otherwise, if you have 2 windows running in the background, say in this black window, you can see it will be calculating the force, it will be checking with the convergence criteria and what is the difference. Everything will be printed on the screen. Since this is very simple problem, actually it is very going at a high speed, so we cannot see that. And you can see here time was actually increasing from 0.01, and now it have reached up to 0.62 with an error message, that is UY. See, at some node the deflection have exceeded the specified maximum permitted limit. That means some failure might have happened. Now let's click on proceed and let's check it. So now let's check for the results. So I am just closing this solution and I am going to the next option, that is general post processing. Inside this, I have an option called as read result. And from this, I am selecting the option by pick. And now you can see different load steps and substeps. Say we have defined different substeps and the load will be applied accordingly. So here all we got convergence, but at a later stage, when it reached load step 1 and substep 58, that also converged, but in the next case, it was not converging or the deflection exceeded, so the analysis stopped. So let's take the second last one, read that result, close, and let's try to plot the crack formation. So for that, below this read result, I have a plot result option. And in this plot result, I have concrete plot. So in that I have crack/crush. So I have to select that. I have to press OK. Now, since I am using a cracked version, some error is there. So for seeing the crack, what I am doing is going to plot control, device option, and I am switching to vector mode. Now you can see, and please note, this is not the exact crack that will be formed in the experimental beam. So this is the area inside where we can expect the crack. That is what you should infer from this. So in this area, we will be having the crack formation. And again, we know that this was a deep beam, and mostly deep beam will be failing by formation of diagonal cracks. And the prediction up to this point is almost correct, because the area in which the expected crack is shown as the diagonal connecting the loading point and the support, as you can see from here. Okay, now again, this analysis is not now complete, because our convergence, the error for our convergence, permitted error was given as 0.1%. That is very small as far as concrete is considered. So once cracks are formed, that convergence will not happen if we are expecting a 0.1% accuracy and all. So let's do one thing. From this particular point, let's start our analysis by permitting more error. So up to this point, we have maintained an accuracy of 0.1%. Now what I am doing is I am again going back to solution. I am going to analysis type, and we have an option for restart. So this is where the restart number, we have given 200 as the number of restart files. So this is the importance of that. I will press the restart, and the initial analysis is conducted with an accuracy of 0.1% tolerance, and it have gone up to substep of 58. So I will start my analysis from that substep. Okay, so I am giving the load step as 1, substep as 58 in this case, and I am giving the action as continue from there. Now, what I will do is that I will go to solution control, solution option, so non-linear. In this, I will go to set convergence criteria. I will remove this criteria, and I will give the new criteria by permitting, say let's permit 5% error. Okay, so I am giving it as 0.05. So up to this point, we have already seen that crack formation have taken place. So we should allow 5% variation so that we will get the remaining values. And I am giving the minimum reference as 1. I am giving it as 1. Okay, as the same thing that we have done in the earlier case. Now, okay, we have restarted our analysis. Let's continue for the solution. Solve current LS. Again, solve. Now you can see earlier it failed at 0.62, but now it is taking more load, and it have again stopped at 0.80, because now the convergence criteria is not matching. Even the error may be higher than 5%. Now let's go and check the crack pattern one more time in general processing. Read result by pick, and I am selecting the substep as 71. Earlier it was 58. Now it have gone up to 71. Read results. Then plot results, concrete plot, crack and crush, and plot. Again, the same problem with patched versions. Switch it off and switch it on again, so that I will get. So now you can see some more crushing have started at these endpoints, and the load value, if you want to, how much load now this we have taken. Suppose you want to calculate that, what you have to do is that the maximum time reached is 0.8057 into the total applied load, that was 600 kilonewtons. So now it have taken around 483 kilonewtons. Okay. Now let's do one more thing. Let's try with a 10%, permitting 10% error. What will happen? Let's check that also. So I am going back to solution. Again, not no analysis. I have to restart the analysis from where? From the very last point we have. That is from substep 71. So from substep. So please note, up to substep 48, we have used a tolerance error of 0.1%, allowing a error of 0.1%. From 58 substep to 71 substep, we have permitted 5% error. Now from 71, we will be permitting 10% error, because the specimen have cracked a lot. Now we will replace this, and we will give it as 10%. 1 for same criteria. Okay, close that. Again, okay, and going back to solution, solve current LS. Okay. Now you can see It is going beyond 0.94 and there it have failed. Now let us take and see read results by pick. The same thing, that is why I'm going fast. And plot results, concrete plot. Okay, again from device options. And please note, this is because of my software problem. Okay, so now you can see the area of crack have further widened. So from the very center portion, it is widened to this side, and you can see 3 different types of cracks. And this color difference is basically based on the direction in which this crack is propagating. So based on the direction in which these cracks are formed, we will have red, green, as well as blue colors. Okay, so this is regarding the crack pattern. Now we have to get the load deflection response of this beam also. So that also can be done in this. So for that, what I am doing is, below this we have an option called as time history post processing. So I am just going inside that so that I will get a window like this, and I have to add data by pressing this button. And from nodal solution, I am taking it as degrees of freedom in the y direction. Okay, and okay. So I have to select a node where I need the deflection to be calculated. Normally in the experimentation, we will be fixing a dial gauge at some particular location. So you have to select a node at the very same location. So I'm selecting the center point. Now while selecting this, it is asking there are multiple nodes at this location. Which one you have to select? So I have to select an exact center. So I am going to side view now. So right now I have selected a node at the back side. So I am pressing this next button. So it is now at the exact center. Now I am pressing it as OK. So now I will get a time versus the deflection at that particular node data. So I am just exporting that data. And where you have to save this file. Let's save it here with the name final. And OK. Now we will go to that location. We have the Excel file here, final. And in, sorry, the data is not. So let us give it one more time. Okay, okay. The reason is that I haven't pressed this OK button. So I will press the OK. Now I hope save it as final. Okay. Okay. Now we have the time and the corresponding deflection for the selected node. So I have to convert this. First thing is, this will be the initial time step. So that time step multiplied by 600. That was the total load we will be applying in small steps. So each time multiplied by the final value will give the respective load which was applied at this particular time. So at this time it was just 6 kilonewton. Similarly, the deflection, it is actually happening in the downward direction, so it is showing as negative. So that quantity multiplied by a -1. Okay, I'm just making it as positive quantity. Let's give the accuracy as 3. So we have 6 kilonewton. Respective deflection at that node is 0.002 mm. And let's give the reference value also. And for the remaining thing, I'm just dragging it down. And I have gone up to the second last point because here there was some error. So I'm just deleting that. Now, if you want, say, what is the maximum deflection? That is around 0.425 mm. And if you want the load deflection curve, what you have to do is that you can plot between these two values. Okay, I'm selecting this. I'm selecting data. And as this curve, in the x-axis, we need the deflection. So I'm selecting all these values. And in the y-axis, we need the load values. Now, if you press OK, let's see. So anyway, we can adjust this curve. If you want, say, let me take the maximum value is 2. So you can see. So this is the load versus deflection graph that we have obtained for our analysis. And whenever you perform a nonlinear analysis, the first thing that you have to do is that based on the method that you are adopting, you please compare the results with the available experimental data. Then you perform the parametric analysis and find the optimum combination or whatever result you want, and finalize all the factors. Then utilizing that factor, you have to perform an experimental study and ensure that the results are safe. So for avoiding the experimentation in between for all the different parameters, we can utilize this finite element method. So this is how we can conduct a nonlinear analysis using ANSYS and plot the load deflection curve, or as well as get the crack pattern. So that's all for today's session. So if you have some doubts, you are free to ask me.
Sanjay, can you show the deformed shape of this DPM?
Yeah, sure, sir. So for that, what you have to do is that, again, go to general post processing, and you have to select the load step for which you require the deformed shape. So I am selecting the second last one. Now we have plot results and deformed shape is there. So you can select that. Press this OK. So this is very much enlarged view. So please don't get frightened seeing the shape.
Why the shape is like this? Why?
Because we have restricted the movement in X, Y as well as Z direction in this node as well as here. So normally we will be providing a roller support so that it will be easy for the support to move slightly to right side, so that proper deflection can take place. Another thing is that this was a deep beam, so we cannot expect a proper flexure behavior for this. It will be having, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Does it mean that at the center there is no deformation?
At the center there is deformation, and we have seen that the maximum deformation was something around 0.42 millimeters. That is very much negligible. And in this figure, it is actually enlarged, scaled view. That's the reason.
Okay.
So that 0.4 mm is shown like this. And again, not only deformation. If you want to plot the strain happening, variation of strain, von Mises stress, and other things, you have the option. Lot of options are there. Say if you take vector plot predefined, in this you have stress, principal stress, you can plot principal stress, then total strain, and lot of things are there. We can plot that. So any more questions?
Whether there is any criteria regarding the maximum deformation for these deep beams? Per maximum?
No, that depends actually, sir. So based on the span to depth ratio, that depends. Say I have even conducted for flexure beams also, and I have obtained proper deflection for that. I have compared the result with experimentation also. We can predict if you have the proper material properties. We can predict the actual behavior of the beam. Say I have collected the basic mechanical properties of the concrete which I have used, and performed an experimental study on a typical shear beam. I have modeled the same in ANSYS using the same material properties and obtained the same load deflection behavior as well as final ultimate load also.
Even any condition for the maximum deformation of deep beams as per according to IS code or some other codes? Maximum deformation or any...
I don't think so, because deflection will come into picture basically when we deal with flexure. But as far as deep beams are considered, the main cause of failure is shear only.
Yeah, it is a failure is due to shear only, but
yeah, so the deflection will be very minimum.
It is deformed or not. Actually,
basically, what we can conclude from this is that it is not at all deformed. Okay. It is failed due to the crushing only, shear failure mainly. Because we have seen the crack pattern also, that was purely diagonal form. So if it was having some sort of flexural influence, we will surely see some cracks originating from the center and going in the upward direction. And even though if we are having a combined flexure and shear failure also, we will be seeing some sort of flexural cracks inside. That was not available here.
What's the major difference between the analysis of a beam using this ANSYS and some other software?
That actually depends, sir. Say, for example, let's take the case of Abacus. See, in ANSYS is actually produced with a very general perspective. It can be used for any sort of analysis. But in Abacus, we have more models. Say by models, what I mean is when we define the materials, we have seen some kinematic hardening and different failure criteria are there. And in the case of Abacus, it have more options focused on concrete itself. So that is one of the advantage we have if we are going with Abacus. And one of the restriction for ANSYS. That is what was that the expected answer, or were you asking in some other perspective?
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Any more questions?
And they were a fundamental question. Solid 65 എന്നൊക്കെ എടുക്കൂല. 65 number, any significance for that link 180?
So that is basically the name given for that.
Okay, there's no other significance.
No.
Okay.
In some elements, say for example, if you take brick elements, let's take one so that it will be, say 8 noded 183.
Okay.
So this 8 actually represent the number of nodes. Say I have in the case of solid 65, I have shown you a figure. See, this is basically the pictorial representation ANSYS have given for solid 65. It is actually having 8 nodes, and we permit 6 degrees of freedom at each of these nodes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh.
Yeah, that's all. That's it.
It is just like a COVID-19.
Yes.
Okay. So, any more questions?
Any question ചോദിക്കാനൊന്നും അറിയില്ല. അത്ര അറിയത്തുള്ളൂ.
Any other questions from the participant side?
Okay.
No. Okay. So thank you so much, Sandeep sir.
Yeah.
It was you have explained all the steps involved in this nonlinear analysis very well. So thank you so much for your effort.
Yeah, welcome.
Thank you, Babu sir. Thank you all other faculties for participating and actively involving in this session. So thank you so much to everyone.
Okay, thank you, Sandeep, once more for the department.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.